This feeling of being 15 again, sneaking out to some dubious party. Only this time, I'm not sneaking out, I'm sneaking away. This is my story. One more glass won't hurt, I mutter, the lie already tasting stale in my mouth. My second refill of Chardonnay sloshes against the rim, echoing the thumping bass outside. Mike will be home late. Another work dinner, another wave of excuses I barely hear anymore. It used to sting, that feeling of being sidelined. Now, it's mostly just empty. A buzz breaks my self-pity spiral. It's Emily, of course. Party at Kate's. You coming? The text is a lifeline, promising an alternative to the silent stretch of hours ahead. My finger hovers over the keyboard. A simple lie, a change of plans. Girls' night. My fingers type, a rush of guilt mingling with an unexpected tingle of excitement. The house pulses with unfamiliar energy as soon as the cab drops me off. A stranger's living room, crammed with bodies, all younger, louder, carefree in a way that tugs at some lone dormant part of me. I should feel out of place, but the anonymity is oddly comforting. A face breaks free from the crowd. A guy with warm brown eyes and a smile that hits me like a splash of cold water, shocking me awake. Isn't that something? After 10 years of comfortable routine, it takes a stranger with a disarming grin to make my pulse quicken. Tom. He introduces himself, his voice a low rumble that vibrates somewhere pleasantly in my chest. Each casual question Emily directs at him becomes an excuse to steal glances, to study the warmth of his laugh. It's not just the wine loosening my tongue, it's a heady mix of nostalgia and something more dangerous. Possibility. This isn't some grand betrayal. That would require Mike to still be a real presence in my life, not just to name I scribble on bills. Yet, as the night stretches on, it feels increasingly a euro wrong. Like a taste test of a freedom I'm not fully entitled to anymore. And strangely, that only makes it more intoxicating. My ears still burn where his breath ghosted against them a moment ago. Just one drink, Tom's voice cuts through the thump of the music, the light swirling behind him like some strange halo. My traitorous heart gives a little leap. This whole life feels like a fever dream, yet the smile tugging at my lips is entirely too real. He seems to sense my hesitation, his grin softening. Hey, no pressure. We can just talk, right? My inner voice cackles with bitter amusement, as if any of this has been about mere conversation. A ding breaks the tension. Mike, checking in. The words, "How's your night?" Thrilling kisses, flash across the screen, and the guilt I've been keeping at bay slams back, a physical ache in my chest. This isn't the freedom I craved, it's some cheap imitation. I tack back a quick, all good, having fun 2 hearts, and shove my phone away. The rest of the group spills onto the patio, a tide of bodies that briefly separate Tom and me. It should be a relief, a chance to reset my whirring brain. Instead, I find myself scanning the dispersing crowd for him, a ridiculous jolt of disappointment twisting into something more, anticipation. There he is, leaning against the railing, alone. I catch my breath. Was that intentional? The lure of the open patio suddenly feels unavoidable, the cool night air promising respite from the suffocating heat of my own skin. He greets me with a raised eyebrow, and my earlier doubts seem to melt away. He isn't pushy, there's an ease to him that melts a sliver of my resolve. We talk, and damningly, I find myself laughing. Really laughing, not the polite half-smiles I dish out at work functions. You shouldn't be out here alone with a guy like me, he murmurs when a particularly raucous burst of laughter drifts over from the group on the lawn. There's that teasing edge again, daring me to respond. A guy like you? My voice comes out breathless, caught on the tightrope walk between playful and reckless. He takes a step closer. He's close enough to touch, and I know the smart thing, the sane thing, is to walk away, to go find Emily in the crowd. But his eyes, still flickering with amusement, hold a question. And deep down, a treacherous part of me yearns for the answer. My hand trembles as I fumble for the cab door handle. Rain splatters the window, distorting the streetlights into blurry streaks of color. It matches my own vision, smudged and distorted by the night's events. Each jolt of the car sends a surge of nausea through me, a grotesque echo of the heady rush from mere hours earlier. You okay, miss? The driver's voice cuts through my haze, and I mumble a vague, "Fine, thanks," hoping he'll drop it. I don't have the strength to fake normalcy. My fingers find the familiar weight on my left hand, the cold band of gold, a chilling accusation. An absurd urge to rip it off wars with a pathetic flicker of defiance. He doesn't deserve my guilt. He barely deserved my presence these past few years. I can't even count anymore. Tom's apartment flashes into my mind, sleek, stylish, and utterly impersonal, a sterile backdrop to the whirlwind of the last hours. Did it really happen? The rumpled sheets, the faint smell of his cologne still clinging to my skin. It's proof I can't erase, no matter how hard I scrub my brain to try and undo it. Just a few more blocks. I whisper to myself, and the words shatter in the silence. There's no comfort in returning home, just a different kind of trap. I picture Mike asleep, the curve of his back towards me, the silent testament to the chasm between us. A sob catches in my throat, and I desperately choke it back. Tears won't absolve me. What I did, it wasn't a hazy mistake. There was intent, an ugly, desperate need to claw back a sliver of the person I used to be. This twisted triumph feels like the most profound defeat of all. Each furtive movement in the darkness of the cab feels like a crime scene and scrubbing clean. My clothes are evidence I can discard, but the heat of Tom's touch still burns against my skin, an invisible brand of shame. The rain falls heavier now, mirroring the cold despair coiling tight within me. Just a few more blocks, and I can attempt the impossible, pretend none of this ever happened. The front door clicks shut behind me like the final snap of a judge's gavel. Home. The word is a mockery. Each familiar object. The vase of fading lilies I never get around to throwing out, the framed photo of us on the mantel, the slight dent in the sofa where Mike always sits, feels like a piece of evidence I've overlooked during a panicked crime scene cleanup. My clothes hit the floor in a discarded heap, but I can't work up the energy for a shower. The hot water won't erase the faint phantom trace of Tom's hands on my skin, the way his name sits just under the surface of my thoughts, a constant, taunting echo. My reflection in the bathroom mirror is a stranger. Eyes wide and bloodshot, the faint smudge of mascara under them like a bruise. Do I look the part of a woman who spent the night in another man's bed? I turn away, unable to bear witness to my own guilt. Sleep, when it finally comes, is cruel. Not the oblivion I desperately crave, but a series of flickering, disjointed scenes. I'm running, but the pavement melts away, replaced with the tangle of Tom's sheets. I try to scream, but Mike's voice calls my name, the concern in his tone a lash against my skin. The alarm throws me awake, and there's Mike, standing over me, a puzzled frown creasing his brow. Bad dream? His words are a lifeline, a chance to cling to normalcy. Just, stressed, I lie, forcing a smile. It feels brittle enough to shatter. He leans down for a perfunctory kiss, the brush of his lips against mine sending a jolt of revulsion through me. The rest of the day unfolds in excruciating slow motion. Every cup of coffee Mike refills, every casual question he throws my way feels like walking barefoot across broken glass. My skin prickles with anticipation, my phone a vibrating poison in my pocket. Has he sent a message? A casual check-in? A question designed to trip me up? Each time the screen remains blank, it brings a dizzying mix of relief and disappointment. Night falls again, and this time, it's terror, not exhaustion, that drives me into bed. I lie still beside Mike, staring up at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster, marking time until the inevitable dawn. This, I realize, is my punishment. Not some grand exposure, but the relentless torture of living with myself, with the knowledge of what I've become. My phone buzzes in my pocket, and my heart does a sickening flip-flop. It's bound to be Emily. How was the rest of your night? She'll ask, a seemingly innocent question laced with the knowing tone she has when I try to hide something. She's my oldest friend, a relentless decoder of my moods. There's nowhere to escape her scrutiny. Days bleed into a blur of hyper-awareness. Every creak in the old house, a footstep outside the office, the rustle of the mail hitting the floor, each innocent sound morphs into a potential threat. Did Tom brag to someone? Was there a camera at that party? Did a stray earring find its way onto the floor of his sterile apartment, a tiny, glittering piece of incriminating evidence? Sleep, when it finally comes, is no respite. My dreams are a disorienting mix of the mundane and the terrifying. I'm back at the supermarket, pushing a cart, but everyone has Tom's face, their identical smirks mocking my spiraling panic. I wake with a gasp, bathed in sweat, certain they're coming for me. Emily's texts become more frequent, more insistent. I ignore them at first, but the guilt of ignoring my best friend wars with the terror of crafting another excuse. Finally, in a moment of weakness, I concoct a story, a migraine, exhaustion, anything but the truth. She buys it, for now, but I can practically hear her skepticism seeping through the screen. My paranoia spills over into work. Every corner I turn might hold Tom, a silent accusation in his eyes. Surely he wouldn't come here, would he? But what do I really know about this man, this ghost who has invaded my life? Then it happens. A casual coffee run turns into a nightmare. There he is, at the counter, the same easy smile, in conversation with Mike. I freeze, a half-formed latte in my hand, watching in horror as their conversation unfolds with unbearable normalcy. Tom sees me, nods in acknowledgement. Is there a flicker of something predatory behind his eyes? Or is my terror inventing it? He introduces himself to Mike, all politeness. They shake hands. Mike seems utterly oblivious, and I fight the overwhelming temptation to run, to scream the truth, to shatter their easy banter. Back in my cubicle, I try to regain my composure. Am I being toyed with? The tension coiling in my chest is all-consuming. In the days that follow, I start to see the cracks in the facade of our normal marriage. A curt comment from Mike about dinner, a glance of irritation, it feels like the first tremors before the earthquake. He doesn't know, not yet, but my guilt is infecting everything, twisting the most innocent interaction into proof that our house of cards is about to come tumbling down. We need to talk, Emily's voice crackles over the phone. It's not the playful tone I'm used to, but a sharp demand that sends a shiver down my spine. We're meeting for lunch, something we haven't done in weeks. Each minute ticking by feels laden with inevitable doom. The coffee shop is a blur. I see Emily seated by the window, her usually vibrant energy tightly wound. My confession spills out before the waiter has even taken our order. The words, shameful and desperate, hang heavy in the air between us. Emily is, as expected, a hurricane of reactions. Shock, a flash of disgust, and then, I see it, the morbid flicker of excited curiosity. I can't believe this. She hisses, yet her eyes rake over me. She wants details, every sordid piece of information I've kept hidden, and some twisted part of me yearns to offer them up, to share this monstrous burden. When she finally sags back in her chair, I feel a flicker of something that's almost pity. So, what now? She asks. The loyalty I've clung to all these years has warped. I can no longer tell if she's friend or foe. Tom's name hangs unanswered between us. I know confrontation with him is inevitable. I could try the pleading route, offer money, whatever it takes to shut him up, but something instinctual tells me it won't be that easy. What does he want? Is this some petty act of revenge, a desire for cash? Or does his game run deeper? The coffee arrives, untouched, and we both stare at the swirling steam as if it holds answers. I return home to an almost eerily normal evening. Mike cooks, asks the usual questions about my day. Beneath our mundane conversation, a new terror bubbles. Every shared glance feels accusatory, every innocent action loaded with the potential for discovery. Did he notice the tremble in my hand as I handed him the wine glass? Does he see me the way Emily does now, tainted, broken? My phone buzzes late that night, a single text from an unknown number. Thought you could get away with it? I nearly lose my grip on the device. The threats were vague before, but this new one slices through any remaining illusion of safety. I want to scream, hurl the phone at the wall, but instead, I freeze, the silence in the room ringing in my ears. And then it hits me. The threats didn't start until after I confided in Emily. My fingers tighten around the phone as a horrifying realization takes root. Could she be the one tormenting me? Is this some twisted sense of payback, jealousy, or maybe, is it even something deeper and more dangerous? The tangled web I've woven for myself has just ensnared me further. There's nowhere to hide. Emily starts appearing with unsettling frequency. Coffee dates masked as concern, offers to just come by and chat, laced with a predatory gleam in her eyes. She wants the messy details, and despite my growing fear, there's a strange validation in it, proof I'm not just imagining her change in demeanor. A new plan takes shape, a gamble based on desperation. I'll tell Emily about the texts, about the escalating sense of being hunted. It's either a catastrophically stupid move or a stroke of twisted genius. If she's the culprit, she'll slip up, reveal herself. If not, maybe she'll be scared enough to actually help, for once. They're not going to stop, I whisper, feigning terror as we huddle in the back corner of that same coffee shop. Emily's eyes widen, a macabre mix of shock and delight. She presses me for specifics, relishing every agonizing detail. Tom, as if summoned by our conversation, re-enters my life in dramatic fashion. He calls, insistent. We need to meet, finish this. His tone is measured, but there's an undercurrent, the barely veiled threat of someone holding all the cards. I'm trapped in a terrifying game of cat and mouse, but I refuse to play the cowering victim. A surge of desperation-fueled anger fuels me. Each sleepless night, as the anonymous threats continue, my resolve hardens. I'm done being a pawn. The internet becomes my weapon of choice. I scour social media, news sites, anything that might unearth information about Tom. Who is this stranger who holds my life in his hands? Late into the night, fueled by coffee and a reckless drive to survive, I dig deeper. And then, hidden amidst the detritus of Mike's home office, the discovery hits me like a physical blow. A photo, haphazardly tucked into a file marked with the client's name, Tom, smiling, beside a woman with vaguely familiar eyes and an achingly radiant smile. And it's not me. Confrontation is inevitable. Mike arrives home to my cold fury, the photo a damning piece of evidence. I slam onto the table between us. Initially, it's confusion, a blank denial that he even knows Tom. Then, with chilling speed, his expression morphs into anger, the blame twisting back on me, questioning my sanity and my judgment. The fragile facade of our marriage disintegrates in a shouting match, accusations echoing against the walls. We were already broken. This just shatters the remaining pieces beyond repair. As he storms out, I sink to the floor, realizing with chilling clarity the game has only just begun. My whole body aches with exhaustion, a ceaseless hum fueled by adrenaline and the bitter dregs of too much coffee. Sleeping pills lie untouched. Rest is a cruel joke when every closing of my eyes conjures the chilling texts and the lingering image of that photo. Just when my resolve begins to fray, Emily reappears on the scene. Her voice on the phone is almost saccharine sweet, a veneer of sympathy thinly masking that familiar predatory edge. Maybe I can help, she offers, the words dripping with false sincerity. Desperation is a dangerous motivator. Against my better judgment, I listen. Her plan is a twisted gamble. Lure Tom out, force a confrontation. She knows a place, an abandoned warehouse district, just the right mix of isolation and theatrics. I picture him arriving, expecting me, vulnerable and contrite, and finding the tables flipped. Yet, a nagging unease coils in my stomach. Isn't there something too eager in Emily's offer, too much relish in her detailed descriptions of how this ambush will play out? Despite my desperation, a new question starts to form. What if I've stumbled into an even more insidious trap? The warehouse looms at dusk, the rusted metal and shattered windows a grim backdrop for my potential downfall. I pace within the cavernous space, each echoing footstep fueling my paranoia. It should be Tom walking through those broken doors. This was Emily's plan, designed to corner him and wrest the truth from him. A figure finally emerges from the shadows. My heart pounds, the relief of it being Tom morphing instantly into a sickening wave of dread. Because it's not him, it's Mike, and he is not alone. Emily is there, watching me from the shadows, her triumphant smirk tearing through the last tattered remnants of our friendship. Her betrayal cuts far deeper than any infidelity I committed. The story unfolds in a sickening torrent of accusations. Emily, with sickening relish, paints me as the architect of my own demise. Tom, it turns out, is her old flame, bitter and willing to be a tool in her vindictive game. Mike's expression is chilling in its cold fury. He is no longer the hapless husband I once knew, but a stranger fueled by his own twisted need for retribution. And I? I am the perfect fool, laid bare and vulnerable. Tom's hold over me, the escalating threats, they were orchestrated by the one person I thought was my lifeline. It's not shame I feel anymore, not guilt, but a white-hot rage at being so thoroughly played. Emily steps from the shadows. I always knew you'd screw up eventually, Sarah. Some people just aren't meant for happiness. A wicked smile twisting her lips as my world collapses around me. A primal scream tears itself from my throat. It ricochets off the warehouse walls, a ragged echo of my shattered soul. Emily is the first target of my fury, my nails clawing uselessly against the iron grip Mike has on my arm. I kick out wildly, a desperate animal caught in a steel trap. Let me go, I shriek. My voice breaks, hoarse and guttural. You did this. You set me up. Emily merely laughs, the sound a grating echo in the cavernous space. All pretense of concern is gone, replaced by a satisfied predator watching its prey struggle. Tom, ever the opportunist, allows the chaos to unfold. He stands slightly removed, an amused smile on his face as his gaze flickers between Mike's rage-contorted features and my tear-streaked desperation. You were always so easy, Sarah, Emily purrs. She circles me, each word like a poisoned dart. So self-absorbed, so blind to anything besides your own pathetic unhappiness. Did Mike ever tell you how I suggested that party? Conveniently forgot to mention his work thing. A chilling realization claws through the haze of my anger. The photo, it wasn't just some other woman. That was Emily, years younger, the triumphant gleam in her eyes disturbingly familiar. My mind races, fragments of conversation falling into a sickening new pattern. Tom wasn't a random fling, he and Mike knew each other. The affair was never the point, it was a tool, a cruel setup designed to make me vulnerable. Mike and Tom finally break apart, locked in a tense standoff. Yet, it's Tom who seems to regain his composure first, a cruel smirk replacing his earlier cockiness. Always so short-sighted, Mike, he taunts, reaching into his pocket. He produces a USB drive, dangling it like some perverse trophy. This, my friend, is why our little partnership had to end. Hope flickers dangerously in my chest. The game isn't over, Mike's reaction is instant. He lunges for the device, his controlled fury replaced by desperation. You don't get to play victim here too, Mike, I spit out. He freezes, his eyes widening in shock. It's a gamble, a shot in the dark, but I need to know, all those late nights, those deals, they were with her, weren't they? Emily, your secret business partner, the puppet master. The silence stretches, broken only by the ragged sound of our breathing. Then, Mike nods slowly, his confession a silent punch to the gut. He turns to Emily, a chilling new hatred gleaming in his eyes. I see pieces click into place, years of whispered deals, hidden ambition, and my own oblivion to the game being played right under my nose. And now, Tom's oily voice cuts through the tension. Thanks to our little charade, I get to expose you both. Financial improprieties, blackmail, such a delicious scandal. It'll be the end of your pristine reputation, Mike. My legs give out, I sink to the dusty floor, the weight of the full betrayal washing over me. The fight has left me, replaced by a bone-deep weariness. We were all pawns, mere figures on their twisted chessboard. Our downfall was orchestrated, every move carefully planned, and I was their perfect fool. My world shrinks down to the four walls of our house. It's no longer a sanctuary, but a gilded cage. Mike isn't quite my jailer, but neither is he my husband anymore. An uneasy truce settles between us, shattered only by the thud of a newspaper on the table each morning, the headline screaming of investigation and scandal. A morbid countdown to Mike's public demise. Tom hovers like a persistent vulture. His visits are a mix of threats and twisted offers. Destroy the flash drive, and a sliver of normalcy might be restored. Or, hand it over and watch Mike's world burn to the ground. Each appearance sends me spiraling further into despair. It's no longer about saving my marriage, it's about sheer survival. Sleep evades me with cruel intent. My dreams are a disorienting mix of Emily's taunting laughter, the cold touch of a cell bar against my skin. Was it my fate, or Mike's? The lines blur, guilt and fear knotting together, a noose around my sanity. The breaking point comes as Tom, emboldened with each of Mike's increasing setbacks, lays his cards on the table. He's going down, Sarah. The question is, are you going with him? His hand brushes against mine, a chilling reminder of the night that started it all. Revulsion surges through me, stronger than the fear. You want the flash drive? My voice rings out, a brittle note of defiance cutting through the heavy silence. His eyes narrow, interest sharpening his features. It's a desperate gambit, but desperation is all I have left. Later that night, as Mike crashes into a whiskey-induced slumber, I creep into his study. The flash drive is there, a tiny silver rectangle gleaming with obscene promise. My hand trembles violently as I slip it into my pocket. The files are as damning as Tom promised. A labyrinth of financial deceit that stretches back years, long before I disrupted their carefully crafted world. When Tom returns the next day, it's not with a threat, but an offer of a chilling alliance. I'm out with Mike and Emily, he purrs. I've been investigating their shady operation for months. You didn't ruin anything, Sarah. You were bait. The realization turns the key in the lock of my anger. This was never about infidelity, it was always about money, and I was the perfect, unsuspecting scapegoat. Confronting Mike is an act of raw self-preservation. I slam the flash drive onto the kitchen table, spilling the ugliness between us like so much poison. Lies crumble into desperation, his carefully constructed facade collapsing under the weight of his crimes. It all ends in a flurry of sirens and police lights. I stand on the porch, hands shaking, as they lead Mike away. The world spins, nausea roiling in my gut. This isn't the freedom I craved, but a brutal end to a story built on deception.